part 4 of chapter 6, we will be discussing about the programs related to if, else, for and while. In this video, we will be seeing altogether 14 different programs. You can check the timeline to skip to the program that you want to learn. So this is the first program that we are going to see. It is going to print odd numbers from a given list. So we have created a list called numbers, and the content of the list is numbers starting from 1 up till 10. Alright, and our aim is to find out and print only the odd numbers from this list. So you can see the output is going to be 1. After that, 2 will not be printed because that's an even number. Then 3, 5, 7 and 9. So this is the output that we are expecting from this program. When you get a program like this, either to identify an odd number or to identify an even number, always remember this part: modulo division with 2. So for example, let us say I have a variable num modulo 2. Now assume that the value of num is 4. So that's an even number. Now when you modulo divide 4 by 2, you can see the remainder is going to be 0. So you should understand, when you modulo divide an even number with 2, always the remainder will be 0. But if you modulo divide an odd number with 2, always the remainder will be 1. Right? So by checking for 0, you can get even numbers, and by checking for 1, you can get odd numbers. Now here you can see this much part is the body of the for loop, and this print statement is inside the if condition check. So only when this condition is true, I will print the number is an odd number. Now let us write the variables on the right side. Okay, so I have the control variable num, which is given inside the for loop. All right, so this is the only variable available with me, and here I will print my output. Okay, so you can see now this is the numbers is the list that you have created, and these are the values inside the list. So the first value from the list will be loaded into the control variable, and then I will run this check. So what it says is that 1 modulo 2 is not equal to 0, because the value of num right now is 1. Okay, so here you can see 1 modulo 2 will give the remainder as 1. And you can see 1 is not equal to 0, so this evaluates to true. So now it will print the value of num, that is 1, is an odd number. Right? After that, the control will go back to for loop again because list is not complete. Now the second value 2 will be loaded into num. So now I will check 2 modulo 2 is not equal to 0, because the value of num now is 2. Right? So now you can see 2 modulo 2, the remainder is 0. And now I am checking whether 0 is not equal to 0. So you can see this condition will evaluate to false. So this print statement will not execute. The control will go back to 4. So here you can see 2 will not be printed in the output because that is not an odd number. That's an even number. So now the next number 3 will be loaded into num. So here I will check 3 modulo 2 is not equal to 0. So here you can see the remainder of 3 modulo 2 division will be 1. Okay, because it's an odd number. So now we can see 1 is not equal to 0. So that is true. So this condition evaluates to true. Now the control will come into if statement. It will print the value of num, which is 3 now. Okay, it will print is an odd number. Now this will continue up till 10. So here you can see 5, 7, 9. For all these numbers 5, 7 and 9, this condition will be true, and for 4, 6, 8 and 10, this condition will be false. Right? So in the output you will see only 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. It will print after that is an odd number. Okay, so now let us run this program. Now our program is ready. So now I'll execute it. You can see in the output it says 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are odd numbers. Now let us go to the next program. Now in this program, we have to print all the even numbers from a given range. Okay, so we don't have a list, we have a range here. And from the range, we have to identify all the even numbers and print it. So you can understand the values inside this range will be 20, 21, 22. It will go all the way up till 29 because 30 will not be included in the range. So now the first value 20 will be loaded into the control variable num. So here, as we are interested in even numbers, we have changed the condition. Of if statement. You can see here. Now we are checking for numbers when modulo divided by 2 produce remainder as 0. So you can understand those numbers are even numbers. So when this condition is true, you can understand that the value stored inside num is an even number. So inside if loop, you can print the number because that's an even number. So you can have the output here. Now let us just run this program for two values. Okay, so first 20 will be loaded into num. So num has value 20. Now this condition will check 20 modulo 2 is equal to 0. So first this part will be evaluated. So 20 modulo 2, as 20 is an even number, you know 2 exactly goes in 20. So the remainder of this division will be 0. So now we are checking 0 is equal to 0. That is true. So now the print statement will execute. So in the output it will print 20 is an even number. Okay. Now next, the second value from the range will be loaded into the control variable num. Now I will check 21 modulo 2 is equal to 0. So when this part is getting evaluated, you can see 21 is an odd number. So when you divide by 2, the remainder will be created with value 1. So now I am checking whether 1 is equal to 0. Now this is false, right? Because 1 is not equal to 0. Now I will not print the statement inside if because the condition is false. I will move back to 4 again. So 21 will not be printed in the output because we are looking only for even numbers, right? So in the result, it will come 20, 22, 24, 28, and the program will stop. Right, because in the range we have only numbers up till 29. 30 is not included, so that will not come in the result. Okay, so now let us run this program. So now we have the program ready, so let me run it. Now you can see, as expected, the output started 20 and we are printing all the even numbers up till 28. Right, now if you are asked to print all the even numbers between 10 and 50, you can change the range with value 10 and you can go up till 51, so that number 50 is also part of the range. So now I can save the program and I can run it. So here you can see these are all the even numbers between 10 and 50. So you can see it starts with 10, 12, 14. It will go all the way up till 50. So by changing the range value, you can select between which numbers you have to find the even numbers. Right, now sometimes the question will be asked, like you have to find all numbers that is divisible by 5 between 10 and 50. So what you have to do here, you just have to change this 2 to 5. So numbers which are perfectly divided by 5 only will produce remainder equal to 0, and only those numbers will be printed out. Okay, so in that case you can just change here like numbers divisible by 5, something like that, and then you can save the program and you can run it. So here you can see the first number in this range which is perfectly divisible by 5 is 10, the second number is 15, the third number is 20, 25, it goes up till 50. Now if the question change, you want to find the numbers divisible by 3, you can change it to 3. So now only numbers which perfectly divides by 3 will produce remainder equal to 0. Only those numbers will be printed out. Right? Of course, you have to change this part. Here it is coming as even number, which is wrong. It is just a string. You can change it to numbers divisible by 3 or something like that. Okay, so I will save it. I will run it. So here you can see the numbers that are perfectly divisible by 3 between 10 and 50 is 12, 15, 18, 21. It goes all the way up till 48. Okay, so in this way you can change the program a little bit to suit your needs. Now let us continue. Now this is the third program that we are going to study. Now the aim of this program is to print first 10 multiples of 3. Alright, so it has to print 3, 6, 9, 12 all the way up till 30. Okay, so let's see how it does that. So now we have a variable called count. So I will just write it here. The initial value of count is 1. Now the while loop will work until the value of count is less than or equal to 10. And these two statements are part of while loop. You can understand that by the indentation given. Now first the output, I will write my output here. Now the first print statement will print the value of count into 3. So right now the value of count is 1. So 1 into 3, so 3 will be printed out. So now we have our first value printed. Now I will increase the value of count by 1. So the new value of count will become 2. Now the control will go back to while. It will check whether 2 is less than or equal to 10. You can see that is true. Next time I will print 2 into 3. So the output will be 6. So we have printed the second value. Now the value of count will be incremented by 1 again. So the value of count will become 3. Next time when my while loop starts, I will check 3 is less than or equal to 10. This is true again. I will come inside. I will print 3 into 3. I will print 9. This will continue up till the count value becomes 10. So that's the last iteration. So let us see that. So when count value becomes 10, you can see 10 is less than or equal to 10. That is true because we have this equal to here. I will come inside and now I will do 10 into 3. So the final value 30 will be printed out. Okay, and now the count value will be incremented to 11. So the new count value will be 11. Now I will check 11 is less than or equal to 10. You can see this is false. So now while loop will exit and your program will terminate. So now you can see you got the output that you want. So now let us run the program. Now we have our program ready. So I'll execute it. Now you can see the output. It starts at 3, 6, 9. The first 10 multiples, you can see it ends with 30. The program changes that if you want to print all the multiples of 5, you just have to change this 3 to 5. Now I'll save it. I'll run it. So now you can see the output has changed to multiples of 5. You can see here 5, 10, 15, 20. It will go all the way up till 50. Now if you want to print the first 20 multiples of 5, you just have to change this count value to 20. So now this loop will work 20 times and it will print the first 20 multiples of 5. So I will save it. I will run the program. Now you can see it starts at 5. It goes all the way up till 50. So this is the first 10 multiples. But the program continues until it reaches 100. So this is the 20th multiple. So this is 20 into 5. You will get 100. So we have printed all 20 multiples of 5 and now the program terminates. So based on the question, you can change these variables and produce the output that you want. So now let us continue. Now we will discuss about the fourth program. Now here we need to print the factors of an input number. Alright, so if I input a number as 8, now what are the factors of 8? You know that the numbers that perfectly divides 8 are its factors. So 1, 2, 4 and 8 itself are the factors of 8. Because when you divide 8 with any of these numbers, the remainder will be 0. Alright. Now before we begin with the program, let me explain to you one more thing regarding identifying factors of a number. Now for example, I want to identify a factor of 12. So I have to check or I have to divide numbers starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, then up till 6. After that you have 7, 8, 9, all the way up till 12. Alright. Or to increase the speed of your program, you just have to check only halfway of this number range to identify the factors of 12. Because you can see that if n is equal to 12, you have to check only up till n by 2 numbers. So n by 2 is 6, because if n is 12, so you just have to check until 6 to identify the factors, right? Starting from 7 up till 12, right? From this range, you will get only one number as the factor, that is the number itself. You can check this with any number to identify that this is true. For example, if I want to find the factors of 24, so n is equal to 24, which means that n by 2 is equal to 12. So you just have to check all the numbers up till 12 to identify which of them are factors. After 12, starting from 13 all the way to 24, you will not find any factors except the number itself, 24, right? So this is the fundamental logic that we will be using in this program, and that is why you can see here we are running the while loop only up till num by 2. So now let us take an example and run this program. Now in the first line, it will print enter the number to find the factor. So I want to find the factors of number 8. Now 8 will be loaded into variable num, and then I have a variable fact which begins with value 1. All right, so I will just write the variables over here. So I have a variable num which has value 8. I have another variable fact which has value 1, and here I have my output. So now my while loop starts. You can see these 3 statements belongs to while loop, and the last print statement is outside of while loop. So the last print statement will execute only after while loop finishes or while loop terminates. Okay, so now first I will check 1, that is a value of fact, is less than or equal to num divided by 2. You can see the value of num is 8, so 8 divided by 2, so the value that I have here is 4. Okay, so I am checking 1 is less than 4, that is true. So now I will get into while loop. Now I will divide the value of num, which is 8, modulo division with 1. When you divide 8 by 1, the remainder will be 0. So this condition also will be true. So now I will print the value of fact 1, because 1 is actually a factor of 8. Okay, so now I will increase the value of fact by 1, because now I have to check whether 2 is a factor of 8. Okay, so I will increase the value of fact to 2. Now from here I will go back to while. So now here I will check whether 2 is less than or equal to 4. You can see that is true. In the if condition, I will check whether 8 modulo 2 is equal to 0. You can see this is also true. Okay, because when you divide 8 by 2, you will get remainder as 0. So now I will go into the print statement. It will print 2 in the output, because 2 is also a factor of 8. And now the value of factor will be increased by 1 more. So the value will become 3. Again, I will go to the beginning of the while loop. Now I will check whether 3 is less than or equal to 4. It is true. So now inside the if condition check, I will do 8 modulo 3 is equal to 0. Now you can see that this will evaluate to false. Why? Because when you modulo divide 8 by 3, you will get remainder as 2, right? Because 3 will go up till 6, and after that you have a remainder of 2. So 2 is equal to 0 is false. So this print statement will not be executed. So 3 will not come in the output. You will increase the value of fact to 4. Okay, so this time I will check 4 is less than or equal to 4. So that is true. Now I will do 8 modulo 4. You can understand 4 exactly divides 8, so remainder you will get 0. So now the print statement will execute. You will get 4 in the output. Now the fact will get increased to 5. Now you can stop, because you have checked all num by 2 values, right? All the factors available other than 8 is already printed out. So now the value of fact becomes 5. I will go to the while loop, condition check. I will check whether 5 is less than or equal to 4. Now you can see this condition will evaluate to false. So now while loop is finished. Now you see I have printed 1, 2 and 4 as the factors, but 8 is missing here. So to print 8, I have the last print statement. So once the while loop is finished, I will come out of while loop, I'll execute this line. So it will print num. So what is the value of num? 8. So that will also be printed. Now I have the factors of 8. So now let us run the program. Alright, now our program is ready. Now I'll execute it. Now it is asking to enter the number for which it will find the factors. So if I enter 8 and I press enter, you can see the factors identified for 8 is 1, 2, 4 and 8 itself. Okay, now I can run the program again. And now if I enter 12, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 perfectly divides 12. And then the number itself, 12 itself will be printed because that's a factor by default. Now if I run the program again and if I enter a prime number, for example 11, now here you can see a prime number has only 2 factors, that is 1 and the number itself. So now let us continue. Now we'll discuss the 5th program. Now this program is supposed to print the total price of items using the break statement. So in this program, if I enter the price of items, that will be added to a variable one at a time. Now if I enter a negative number as the price of an item, immediately the program will stop. It will just print the sum of all items that I have entered up till now. Now you can see here, if price is less than 0, so when I enter the price as a negative number, for example minus 10, now when this condition becomes true, you can see the break statement written inside the if condition check will be executed. Now the control will come out of the while loop to the last print statement, which is written outside of while loop, and it will print the total price of item is total. That is actually the cumulative sum of all the prices that you have entered up till entering the negative number. We have a variable total. We have variable price and we have the output. Finally, it will be printed out. So initially the value of total is 0. So now you can see after the while keyword, I have written here true. So there is no condition over here. It means that always the while loop evaluates to true. So you should understand this while loop will never stop. It will keep on executing again and again. And the only way to come out of this while loop is by executing this break statement. Starting from this price, all the way up till this total belongs to the while loop. First I will take input for the value price for the first item. So I will enter 50 from the keyboard and 50 will be stored into price. Okay, so now the value of price is 50. Now I will check the value that I have entered for the variable price is less than 0. So 50 is not less than 0, so this is false. So break will not be executed, the control will go to else. Right now the value of total is 0. And the value of price is 50. So I will add 0 plus 50, that is 50, and that value will be stored into total. So now total is having value 50. So now the control will go back to the beginning of while. So the condition is true, so I don't have to check that. While will immediately start. Now it will ask for the next value to be entered by the user. So this time I will enter 100 as the price. So the new price value that user have entered is 100. So now I will check whether 100 is less than 0. Now this is false. So break will not get executed. The control will come to else. Now the value of total is 50 and the new price that you have entered is 100. Now 50 plus 100, 150 will be stored into total. So the new value of total is 150. Now the control will go back to while. Now while is true, the control will come inside. Now assume that you have to stop the program. So I will enter a negative number as the price. So I will enter minus 5. So that will be stored into price. So now price will have value minus 5. So now if condition check will be executed, minus 5 is less than 0. So now you can see this is true. So now the if statement will get executed, which is break. So once break statement is executed, the control will come out of the while loop to the next statement outside the while loop, which is the last print statement. So in the output, it will print total price of item is the value of total. Now what is the value of total? 150. Okay, because you have purchased two products, one with 50 and another with 100 rupees. All right, so the total value that you have to pay is 150. All right, so now let us run this program. Now we have the program. I will execute it. Now it is asking for the input. So I will enter the price of the first item 50. I will press enter. Now it is waiting for the second value to enter. All right, so now I will enter the price for my second item is 100. Now it is waiting for the third input. So now I have purchased only two products. I want the while loop to stop and print the result of how much money I have to pay. So you can enter any negative number. So I will enter -5. I will press enter. Now you can see your while loop stopped. The last print statement printed that total price of item is 150. You can run the program again. This time I will keep on entering positive numbers. For example, 50, 100, again a 50, again a 100, again 200, again 350. It goes like that. So now I have purchased a bunch of items. Now if you want to stop the program, I will enter -10. So now when I press enter, you can see the total price of all the items that I have purchased now amounts to 850 rupees. So now let us continue. Now the next program that we are going to study is to find the prime numbers from a given range. So first of all, let me explain to you what's a prime number. Any number who has only two factors. For example, if I take 11, 11 has only two factors, which is 1 and 11 itself. A number which has only two factors, that is 1 and the number itself. Those types of numbers are called prime numbers. Now you can see some of the example prime numbers are 7, 11, for example 13, 17, 19. All these are examples of prime numbers. Now you should understand any number you take, for example n, two numbers will be the factors of this number for sure, that is 1 and n itself, right? Because if you divide n by 1, you will not get any remainder. If you divide n by n also, you will not get any remainder, right? So if you want to check whether a number is prime or not, you don't have to check with 1, you don't have to check with n, right? So if you take the value of n as 11, for example, because we know 11 is a prime number, so ideally I have to divide 11 with all the numbers starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 11. Each number has to be checked and identified whether those are factors, right? But according to the first logic, I don't have to check 1, I don't have to check 11, because I am sure that these two numbers are factors, right? So I don't have to check that. So I have to check starting from 2. That is why in the program you can see the value of j is initiated as 2. And starting from 2 until where you have to check. We are trying to find the factors of 11. Now in the previous program, I already discussed with you the factors of a number you can identify only before n by 2 numbers. So if n is equal to 11, you have to identify n by 2, which is 5 in this case. So you have to check only numbers from 1 to 5 to find factors of 11. All right, starting from 6 until 10, you will not get any factors, and 11 we already know that's a factor. So this part, the right side part, you don't have to check, right? So that is why you can see here we are going until I by 2. Okay, so the value of j will be 2, and I am going only up till I by 2, because I is the value that I want to check whether it's a prime or not. Okay, so now let us see the program. So the aim of this program is to print the prime numbers from a given range, right? So if I enter the lower limit as 10 and if I enter the higher limit as 20, this program should print out all the prime numbers between 10 and 20. So the answer is going to be 11, 13, 17 and 19. These are the 4 prime numbers between 10 and 20. So let us see how our program identifies it. So I have fixed my variable value low as 10 and I have fixed the variable value high as 20. Okay, so I have inputted 10 to low and 20 to high. Now I have my for loop. This entire subsequent program is part of the for loop, right? Now this 3 statement is part of while loop. Okay, so now let us start the program. So I have a variable I over here. Now I will select values between low and high plus 1. So that is between 10 and 21 for us, because you see the value of high is 20. So the value between 10 and 20 will be created by the range. So you can understand the value will start with 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 up till 20. Okay, so first the value 10 will be loaded into I. Okay, so we are going to check. So now the job of this inner while loop is to check whether I is a prime number. Okay, so that is the job of this while loop. So let us see how it does that. So before entering into the while loop, I'll create a new variable j. So the value of I is 10 now. I'll create a new variable j. So the value of j is 2. So now I will check whether j, so that is 2, is less than or equal to I by 2. So the value of I is 10. So I by 2 is 5. So now you can see this statement evaluates to true. I will come inside. Next I am trying to find whether j is a factor of I. Okay, so you can see the value of I is 10 and I am trying to find out whether j, that is 2, is a factor of 10. So how will I do that? If I do 10 modulo 2 and I get the remainder as 0, then I can understand 2 is a factor of 10. So here you can see the value of I is 10 modulo and the value of j is 2. So this will evaluate to 0. So this condition will be true. So you can see now 10 is not a prime number because apart from 1 and 10, I have identified 2 also is a factor of 10. So now I can understand 10 is not a prime number. Right? So I don't have to keep on checking all the factors up till 5, because if you get one factor other than 1 and 10, you can be sure that it's not a prime number. So you should understand this break will take the control out of the immediate loop, that is while loop. So now the control will come out from the while to the if condition check. Now here I am checking whether the value of j is greater than I by 2. The value of j, which is 2, is greater than 5. So here you can see this is false. So this print statement will not be executed. So in the output, 10 will not be printed as the prime number. Now you can see after this print statement, the control will go back to the 4. And now the variable I will take the next value from the range, which is 11. So 11 will be loaded into I. So now the value of j will be again made equal to 2. Okay, so now I will check 2 is less than or equal to I by 2. So that is 11 by 2. So again the value is 5. And now I will check whether I modulo j is equal to 0. So that evaluates to 11 modulo 2 equal to 0. So you can see 11 modulo 2 will produce remainder 1. So this condition is false. Right, this condition is false, so break statement will not get executed. I will increment the value of j. So what I have done is that I checked whether 2 is a factor of 11 and then I have failed, right? Because 2 is not a factor of 11. So I will increment the value of j is equal to j plus 1. Now I am going to check whether 3 is a factor of 11. So the control will go to the beginning of the while loop. So now inside the if loop, I will check 11 modulo 3 equal to 0. You see, when you divide 3 by 11, you will get remainder as 2. Now this is also false, right? This is also false. So break statement will not get executed. So now I understand 3 is also not a factor of 11. I'll increase j again with 1 more to check whether 4 is a factor of 11. So now I'll go to the beginning of while loop. I will check whether 4 is less than 5. Yes, I will come inside. Now I will check 11 modulo 4 is equal to 0. Now when you divide 11 by 4, you will get remainder as 3. So now 3 equal to 0 is false, so break will not get executed. So I understand 4 is also not a factor of 11. Now I will increment the value of j 5, right? So now I'll come here. I will check 5 is less than 5. This is true. I will come inside. Now I will check whether 11 modulo 5 is equal to 0. So when you divide 11 by 5, you know that remainder 1 will be produced. So again this condition is false. Break will not get executed. So now j will get incremented one more time. So the value of j will become 6. Again the control will go back to while loop. So now it will check whether 6 is less than or equal to 5. This is false. So now when the while loop exits, I am just checking how the while loop has exited, whether it has exited with a break. In that case, it is not a prime number, or whether it is exiting because the value of j becomes greater than I by 2. So now it will check the value of j, which is 6, is greater than I by 2, which is 5. You can see this is true. So in this case, it is a prime number. So now in the output, I will print 11, that is the value of I, is a prime number. So now let us run this program. So now we have the program here. So let me execute it. It is asking for the lower limit. I will enter 10. Then I can enter the higher limit also. I will enter 20 and I'll press enter. You can see these are the 4 prime numbers which is available between 10 and 20. I'll run the program again. This time I will enter 10 as the lower limit, and the higher limit I can enter as 100. So now this program will find all the prime numbers between 10 and 100. So here you can see these are all the prime numbers available between 10 and 100. Starting from 11, 13, 17, it goes all the way up till 97. Now in this program, you are going to find the factorial of a number. So if I enter the value as 5, my program should find the factorial of 5, which is obtained by 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. So the answer is going to be 120. So this is the result that I'm looking for. So let's see how the program finds this output. Now in the program, you can see I have an if statement, elif statement, and an else. Now the if statement and elif statement is just going to identify 2 exception cases. The actual factorial is find out inside the else. Okay, so if the number that you have inputted to the program is a negative number, for example, you enter -5 to the value num, in that case the if condition check will be true because num is less than 0, and it will just print factorial does not exist for negative number, and the program will terminate. If you enter value 0 as the input for number, then the elif condition will be true where num is equal to 0, and I will print factorial of 0 is 1. So for any positive number that you enter, for example 5, into the variable num, you can see the condition inside if will be false, the condition inside else if will be false, and then the control will come to else, and inside else you will identify the actual factorial value. So now assume that I entered 5 and the value of num is 5. Okay, so now the control will come to else and I will start the computation of factorial. So I have a variable fact here and the initial value of that variable is 1. Now I have a for loop and this is the only statement inside the for loop, right? This print statement is outside of for loop. So now the for loop has a control variable I. Now I gets value from this range from 1 to num plus 1. So that is from 1 to 6. So the values available inside this range is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, right? So the first value 1 will be loaded into I, and then the value of fact will be calculated by multiplying the value of fact into the value of I. So right now the value of I is 1. I will multiply the value of fact and I. So 1 into 1, so the answer will be 1. That will be loaded into fact. Once fact equal to fact into I statement is executed, the control will go back to 4. Now it will load the second value 2 into I, so the value of I will become 2. Then it will multiply fact into I, so 1 into 2, so the value 2 will be loaded into fact. So the value of fact will become 2. Again the control will go to 4. The next value 3 will be loaded into I, so the value of I will become 3. You will multiply 2 into 3, so the value 6 will be loaded into fact. Right, again when the control will go back, now 4 will be loaded into I. Now 6 into 4, 24 will be loaded into fact. Okay, again the control will go to the for loop. This time the last value from the range 5 will be loaded into I. So 5 will come here. Now 5 into 24, 120 will be loaded into fact. Now the for loop terminated because it has done taking all the values from this range. Then the control will come to the print statement. There you will print in the output the factorial of num. So the value of num is 5. Num is fact. So the value of fact now you can see is 120. So that will be printed out. So this is how this program calculates the factorial. So let us run this program. So now we have the program ready. I will just execute it. First I will enter -5. Okay, so here you can see now my if statement will be executed. It will print factorial does not exist for negative number and the program will be terminated. So when I press enter, you can see the output is coming like this. Okay, now I'll run the program again. This time I will enter number 0 so that my second condition elif will be executed. It will print the factorial of 0 is 1. So now I'll press enter. You can see the factorial of 0 is 1. I'll run the program again. This time I will enter 5. So now the control will come to my else and there I will calculate the factorial of 5 and then I will print the result. I will press enter. So here you can see the factorial of 5 is 120. You can run the program again and you can find the factorial of 10 if you want. You press enter. You can see this is the factorial of 10, that is 36,28,800. So let's see the next program. Now this program we are trying to print a sequence of numbers according to this pattern. Okay, so the first number is going to be -5, then 10, -15, 20, 25, 30, 35, like that, up to n terms. So once you see the sequence, you can understand each number is getting incremented with a value of 5, right? And there is one more thing. According to the position of these numbers, the positive sign and the negative sign is getting altered. So the positive or negative number is decided by the position of these numbers in the series. So -5 is the first number that we are printing. The second number is 10. The third number is -15. The fourth number is 20. The fifth number is -25. Sixth number is 30 and the seventh number is -35. It goes like that. So now we can understand all odd number terms, that is 1, 3, 5, 7 have negative numbers, and all the even number terms which are 2, 4, 6, 8, it goes like that, are positive numbers. Alright, so based on the position, I have to alternate the sign as negative and positive. Okay, so now let us start the program. So in the first line, I have to input how many numbers I have to print in the series. So if I input here as 5, which is going to get stored in variable n, then I will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. That is from -5 up till -25 of this series. If I enter 10, I will print 10 terms in the series. So let us keep it to 5. So I will write the first variable n with the value 5. Now we have another variable num. This also begins at 5 because the first number that I have to print is 5. Okay, so that is why I start at 5. Now I will print a statement, the generated series is. After that, this for loop will actually print the values to the output. So we will write the output over here. Now the for loop is supposed to print all the numbers in the series. Now you can see here, according to the indentation, this entire part belongs to your for loop. Now inside for loop you have an if and else statement. Now inside if you have a print statement. Inside else you have another print statement. Outside of this if and else you have the last statement inside for, which says num is equal to num plus 5. So now let us start. So first the for loop have a control variable I. Now the control variable gets the value from the range. Now the range goes from 1 to n plus 1. So the value of n is 5. So it will go to 1 to 6. So the value inside the range is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the first value 1 will be loaded into the control variable I. So I will have value 1. You can see the value of I as the position. Okay, because if I want to print 5 numbers, the I will range from 1 to 5. So by checking the value of I, you can understand whether it's an odd number term or an even number term. So if it's an odd number term, you have to multiply the value with -1 to get this sign. If it's an even number term, you just have to print it, right? So that is the logic behind this if and else statement. So I am going to check whether the current term, which is 1, if it's an odd number term or an even number term. Now in the previous program, you already know that if you want to find the number is odd or even, you just have to do a modulo division with 2. So the value of I right now is 1. I will modulo divide it by 2. So this will give remainder as 1. So you can see this condition is false. So I will go to else. Now else will be printing all odd number terms, and if will be printing all even number terms. Okay, so right now this 1 is an odd number term. Okay, so I will go to my else part because my if condition is false, and there you can see it is printing 5. The value of num is 5 into -1. Okay, so you will get in the output as -5. So we have printed the first term in the series. Now I'll go to the last statement inside my for. The value of num is incremented by 5. So right now the value of num is 5. 5 plus 5, 10 will be stored into num. So the new value of num is 10. So now my control will go back to 4. Okay, so now the second value 2 will be loaded into I. So the value of I will become 2. Now I will check whether 2 modulo 2 is equal to 0. So now you can see this is an even number term. So this will be true. So when it's true, if condition check print statement will be executed. So now I'm just printing the number. You can see I'm not multiplying with -1. So I will print the number. So 10 will be printed, right? So I have the second term over here. So now else will be skipped. I will increase the value of num again with 5. So 15 is the new value that is available inside num. So 15 will come here. Now again I'll go to 4. Now I'm trying to print the third term. So 3 will be loaded into I. So the value of I will become 3. So now I'll check 3 modulo 2 is equal to 0. So now this will be false, right? So I'll go to else part. So there the current value of num is 15. So 15 into minus 1 will be printed. So the next term in the output is going to be minus 15. Okay, and after that the num will get increased by 5. So 15 plus 5. So 20 will be loaded into num. So that will be the next value. Alright, next time it will print the fourth term and the fifth term accordingly. So you should understand, for all the even terms I will just print the value of num. For all the odd terms I will multiply num with minus 1 and print. So that is why this minus and plus numbers are coming alternatively in the series. Okay, so now let us run this program. Now we have the program ready. So now I will just run it. So it is asking for the limit. So if I enter 5, it will print first 5 numbers in the series. Okay, so here you can see the first 5 numbers is minus 5, 10, minus 15, 20, 25. So I run the program again. This time I will ask to print the first 10 numbers in the series. So here you can see it starts with minus 5, it goes up till 50. Now if in the question, if they are not altering the sign, which means series is like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, then the program is much more simple. You don't require this if statement, you don't require this complete else statement. You can just push this print statement to make it inside the for loop. This is enough. Alright, so here you can see I don't have to check whether I is an even term or an odd term, right? I just have to increment 5 and print it until my range is finished. Okay, so if you run this program and if I enter 10, you can see without the sign alternating, you can print all the numbers as positive numbers. Now if you want to print the series all numbers as negative numbers, you can just multiply this num with minus 1. So now all numbers printed in the series will be negative numbers. So I can save it, I can run it. So now if I print 10, you can see all the numbers printed out will be negative numbers. Right? So in this way you can change the logic inside this program and adapt it to the question that is asked for you. Now let us continue. In this program we have to find the sum of the series given here. Right, so this series is actually 1 plus 1 by 2 cube plus 1 by 3 cube plus 1 by 4 cube. It goes up till 1 by n cube. So if we have asked it to print the first n terms of this series. Now we have to enter the limit of how many terms you have to print over here. Okay, so if I enter 5, so 5 will be loaded into variable n. So we are supposed to print first n terms. So this is the first term is 1, the second term is 1 by 8, the third term is 1 by 27. Then you have to print 2 more numbers of the series, and then you have to print the sum of all these numbers as the result. Okay, so let us see how this program does that. So I have variable n. So let's say that we enter 5 to n. Okay, so next I have a variable sum. It is having an initial value 0.0, so you can understand this is a float variable because it is taking a decimal value as the input. After that I have a for loop which has these 2 statements inside of it, and the print statement is outside the for loop. So after the for loop terminate, I will print sum of the series with the value inside the sum. Now the for loop runs with control variable I, and it gets the value from the range I to n plus 1. So n plus 1 is 6. So the range 1 to 6 will have value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the first value 1 will be loaded into I, and then I will generate the term that should be added to the sum. So each unit in here is a term. So 1 by 8 is a term, 1 is a term, 1 by 27 is a term. So this is where we generate the term and then we add term to the existing sum. That is how we find the sum of the total series. So now you can know the value of I is 1. So this term will evaluate to 1 divided by 1 raised to 3. So you can understand this is 1 itself. So initially the value of term will be 1. So right now the value of sum is 0.0 and term is 1. You add both of them and the result will be stored to sum. Okay, so sum has value 1.0. Now the control will go back to 4. It will take the second value from the range and load into control variable I. Okay, so I will have value 2. This time the value of term will be 1 divided by the value of I, which is 2, raised to 3. So I will be raised to the power of 3 by this operator. Okay, so now you know 1 divided by 2 raised to 3 is our second term, that is 1 by 8. Okay, so now the value of 1 by 8 will be calculated, that is 0.125. that will be loaded into term. Now the value of sum is 1.0 and value of term is 0.125. This two will be added and the result will be stored into sum again. So now the value of sum will be 1.125. Now again the loop will continue. The next value 3 will be loaded into I. So this time the term will evaluate to 1 divided by 3 raised to 3. So that is 1 divided by 27. You can see that's the third term. Now I don't know what's the value of this. Let us say that is x. Okay, so now to the existing value of sum, that is 1.125, the new value x will be added and the result will be stored to sum. This will continue until you reach 5. So which means I will finish adding all the terms until the 5th term and the cumulative total will be available inside this variable sum. So once the for loop finish, I will go to the print statement. I will print in the output sum of series. Sum of series is, then you will get a value, maybe 1.8613, something like that. Okay, it depends on how much values you print. So now let us run the program. Now our program is ready. Let me execute it. Now first time I will enter the limit as 1. Okay, so only the first term will be printed, which is 1. So the answer is going to be 1. Right, so here you can see sum of series is 1 because I have only one term in the series, which is 1. So next I'll run the program again. This time I will enter the number of term as 2. So I will be adding 1 plus 1 by 8. Okay, the first two terms in the series I will add and I'll print the result. So now you can see the value will come as 1.125. You can verify this is correct by using a calculator. Now I'll run the program again. This time I will enter the limit as 10. So I am adding the first 10 terms in the series and the result will be printed here. So here you can see this is the result. Now let us continue to the next program. In this program we have to find the sum of digits of an input number. So if you enter a number like 8713, your program should add all the digits in this number and find the result as 19. So let us see how to do that. Now before we start with the program, let me just explain to you what will happen if you modulo divide a number with 10. So when you divide 8713 with 10, the remainder is going to be 3. Now randomly if I take another number 716 and you modulo divide by 10, you can see the remainder is going to be 6. Now if I take another number 89 modulo 10, you can see the remainder after this division will be 9. So what do you understand from this? When you modulo divide a number with 10, the result is going to be the last digit. You can see here, right? The result is always going to be the last digit of the number. So by using this technique, you can extract the last digit from a given number. So we will be using that in this program. And one more thing. Now, after extracting the last digit 3 by using the modulo division by 10, you have to remove this 3 and work on 871 to remove the next last digit 1. So to remove 3, what you can do is that I can divide 8713 with 10. But this will give result 871.3. You can see still this 0.3 is here as a decimal value. So to cut this decimal value away, you can use the floor division. So when you do a floor division, it will take only the integer part. So the result will come as 871. So in this case, you can see you have just deleted this 3 from the number. Okay, so by using modulo division by 10, you can extract the last digit. By using a floor division, you can remove the last digit from the number. Now we will be using both of this technique inside this program to extract the digit and then add it to a variable to find the cumulative sum. So now let us start. So first of all, it will ask for the number. So for example, I enter the number as 763. Okay, so I have a variable sum. The initial value is 0. So I have the first variable num. I entered the value as 763. I have the next variable sum. The initial value is 0. Then I will print a line saying that sum of the digits of 763 is with a space. Okay, now we will come to the while loop. Now here you can see all the 3 lines after the while loop belongs to it. So now I have a variable called L digit. It stands for last digit. Okay, so my first aim is to extract this last digit 3 from 763. So how will I do that? So here you can see last digit gets the value by dividing num, which is 763, by 10. So I already told you when you modulo divide a number with 10, the result is going to be the last digit 3. So now 3 is stored into L digit. So now L digit has the last digit of 763. After that, I will add the last digit to the sum. So right now the value of sum is 0, last digit is 3. So I will add 0 plus 3. The value 3 will be stored into sum. So now sum has value 3. Now before the next loop starts, I have to remove this 3. So what I will do, I will just do a floor division. So now num is equal to num. So the value of num is 763. Floor divide 10. The result is 76.3. But as it's a floor division, this decimal part will be cut off. Only 76 will be available and that will be stored into num. So num now has 76. Now I will come to the beginning of the loop. Now I will check whether 76 not equal to 0. Okay, initially I have checked 763 not equal to 0. That was true. That is why we came into this loop the first place. Now I am checking 76 not equal to 0. You can see that is true. I will come into the loop. Now I will find the last digit like 76 modulo divide 10. Okay, so now we can see the result is 6. Now 6 will be loaded into L digit. So now L digit has value 6. Now after that, I will add the value of sum to L digit. So 6 plus 3, 9 will be loaded into sum. So right now sum has value 9. Now I have to remove this 6 from num. For that, I will do a floor division on num. So 76 floor divide by 10, the result is going to be 7. So that 7 will be stored into num. So num has value 7. So now I'll again go to the beginning of the while loop. I will check whether 7 not equal to 0. That is true. I will come inside. Now I'll do 7 modulo 10. The result will be 7. That will be stored into L digit. So now L digit has value 7. Now I will add the value of sum. Right now it's 9. Now 7 will be added to it. So the sum will grow to 16. Alright, so that will be the new value of sum. Now I will do a floor division on 7. So now you see 7 divided by 10. The result is 0.7. Now when the decimal part is cut off, what you have rest is 0. Now 0 will be loaded to num. Okay, so now I'll go to the beginning of the while loop. There I will check 0 not equal to 0. Now this is false. Okay, so I will come out of the while loop. I will print the sum. So in the output, you can see the sum of all the digits in 763 is 16. Okay, so now let us run the program. Okay, now we have the program ready. I will execute it. I will enter the number 763. I'll press enter. Now you can see the sum of digits of 763 is 16. Now I'll run the program again. This time I will give a bigger number, 89512. Okay, so now I'll press enter. You can see the sum of digits in 89,512 is 25. Okay, so now let's go to the next program. Now in this program, we'll check whether an entered number is a palindrome. What I mean by palindrome is that if the number that you enter is 767, you reverse the digits in this number. Okay, so the last 7 will become the first 7, 6 will remain in the middle, and the first 7 will go to the last position. After you reverse the number, you check whether this number is still equal to the original number. Now if they are same, then 767 is a palindrome. Right, but if you have another number like 314 and you reverse the position, you have 413, you know that they are not equal. So in this case, you can say 314 is not a palindrome. Once you take the input to num, you have to reverse the number. And after you reverse the number, you have to check whether the number and the reverse number are same. If they are same, you will print it's a palindrome. If this condition is false, in which case the reverse number is not same as the original number, you will print it is not a palindrome. So here you can see this while loop is actually reversing the number. Okay, so let's see how it is done. Now before we start to trace the program, you can see this step. I am doing a modulo division with 10 to extract the last digit, and this step I am doing a floor division with 10 to remove the last digit from the number. I have explained these concepts clearly in the immediately previous program. So let us say I enter a number 767 as input. So this number is loaded into the variable num. So I have variable num which has value 767. I entered 767 because I know this number is a palindrome number. Then I have a variable temp. Okay, now this temp value is also copying the value of num. So this num is having 767. I will have the same value inside temp. Then I have another variable ref which has initial value 0. Okay, so now my while loop is going to start. It has 3 statements inside of it, and it is checking whether the value of temp is not equal to 0. So right now the value of temp is 767 and it is not equal to 0. So this condition is true. I will come inside. Next I will do temp, that is 767 modulo 10. So the result of this is going to be 7, which is the last digit. Okay, I told you when you do a modulo division by 10, always you will get the last digit as the remainder. So that is stored into L digit. Okay, so that is last digit. So to last digit, you will store the value 7. So the next step is where we will develop the reverse number. Okay, so first it will do reverse into 10. So here you can see the initial value of ref is 0. So 0 into 10 plus L digit, so that is 7. So 0 into 10 will produce 0 plus 7 will produce the entire result as 7. That will be stored into ref. So right now the value of ref is 7. So I have processed this last digit. Okay, so now I have to remove it. Now for that I will do a floor division to the value of temp. So right now the value of temp is 767. I will do a floor division on 10. So the result is going to be 76. So that is stored into temp. So right now the value of temp is 76. Okay, so I have just removed the last digit from temp. We are not going to remove anything from num because we need the value of num to check with the value of ref. That is why we are copying it to temp and working on it. After this statement, the control will go back to while. This time I will be checking the value of temp, which is 76, is not equal to 0. That is true. Now next I will do 76 modulo 10, so the last digit will come as the result, which is 6. That will be loaded into last digit. So now last digit has value 6. In this iteration, you can understand why we multiply 10 to ref. So here you see, now the value of ref is 7 and value of L digit is 6. If you simply add 7 and 6, you will get 13. But we don't need that. What we require is that the 7 should come to the first position, 6 should go to the next position. I should multiply 7 with 10. So now the result will be 70. And then I should add 6 to it. So the result will come as 76. So now you see the position is coming properly. After 7, we have 6. So that is why I have a 10 put over here. Okay, so 7 into 10 will be 70. You add 6 to that, the result is going to be 76, and that will be loaded into ref. So now the reverse number has reached 76. Okay, 76. Now I am done with the last digit 6, so I have to remove it. So what I will do a floor division on 76, so the result will be 7. That will be loaded into temp. So now temp has 7. So I'll come here in the beginning of the while loop. I will check 7 not equal to 0. It is true. Now next I will do 7 modulo 10. So the remainder will be 7. That will be loaded into L digit. So L digit will have 7. Now you can see this line. Now the value of ref is 76. Now you multiply 10 to that. So now you will get 760. And then you add L digit value 7. So now the result will be 767. So now you see this 7 comes to the last position. Right? You have finished reversing. So now the value of ref will be 767. Now the control will go to the next line. Now you will do a floor division on 7. Now we can see the result is going to be 0. So 0 will be loaded into temp. So now you will check 0 not equal to 0. You will get false. So now while loop has finished, I'll come out. Now you will check the value of num, which is 767, is equal to value of ref, that is also 767. So when they are equal, now you know that it's a palindrome. You will print this number is a palindrome. Now you can run the same program. You can trace with another number, maybe 314. Once the while loop finish, you will have 413 in reverse, and then you check this condition like 314 equal to 413. This will be false. Then the control will go to else, and you will print the number is not a palindrome. So now let us run the program and see the result. So now we have the program ready. So now I'll execute it. So first I will enter a palindrome number. I will enter 767. I press enter. You can see the number 767 is a palindrome because when I reverse and I check with this number, it's the same. So now I'll run the program again. I will enter 314. I'll press enter. Now you can see the number 314 is not a palindrome because when you reverse this number, you will get 413 and it is not equal to 314. All right. So let's see the next program. So in this program, we will learn how to print a pattern based on an input character. So this will be the pattern which we will be printing out. Okay, so here you can see in the first line only one character will be printed. In the second line you will have the character printed 2 times. It goes like that. So in the last line you can see the character is printed 4 times. So let's see how we can do that. So the program initially expects a character that you want to print in each line. Okay, so here we will be inputting capital A. That is why in the pattern you can see in each line capital letter A is printed out many times. So now this A will be loaded into the character. Now this program is example for nested for loop because you can see inside this for loop you have another for loop. Right? So inside the first for loop you have these 3 statements. Now inside the second for loop you have the print statement which actually prints the character A with a space to its right side. Okay, so now let us see how it works. Now you see the outside for loop will work 4 times because the range value goes from 1 to 5. So the values in this range will be 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the outside for loop, roughly you can say this is the for loop which counts the line numbers, right, that you want in the output. So here you can see in the output you require 4 lines. That is why the first for loop you are running 4 times. If you want to print this in 10 separate lines, you have to increase the range value so that the first for loop will work 10 times. So as per our example output, we require only 4 lines. So I have put the range value as 1 and 5. Now inner for loop is supposed to print the number of characters per line. Okay, so if you are running the outer for loop for the second time, the inner for loop has to print 2 A's. If you are running the outer for loop for the third time, then the inner for loop has to work 3 times to print A. So that is why you can see based on the value of I will be changing the range value of my inner for loop. Right, so when the value of I is 1, now you can see the inner for loop will work only 1 time. Right, now when the value of I becomes 2, the inner for loop will work 2 times, printing A 2 times in the output. Now when the value of I will become 3, you can see the inner for loop will work 3 times, printing A thrice in the output. Right, so that's how the program proceeds. So now let me trace the program for at least first 2 lines and then we will run the program. So here we have a variable I, okay, and here you can see the I is going to get value 1, 2, 3, 4 as per this range input values. Now the inner for loop works on control variable j, right, and here you can see initially the value 1 will be loaded into I. So now the range for the inner for loop will be 1 comma I plus 1, that is 2. Okay, so this will be the start value, 1 and 2 will be the stop value. So in this range you will have only one value which is 1. So that 1 will be loaded into j. So now j will have value 1 and after that I will print character. So right now the value of character is capital A. So A will be printed with a space, right? So once the inner for loop is finished, because we took the only available range value, now the control will come out of inner loop. I will execute this print so that the cursor will go to the next line. Okay, now the control will come back to 4. So now the first line is printed out. Now this for loop has to advance the program to print the second line. Now it will take the second value from the range and load it to the control variable I. So now I will have value 2. Now you can see the range of the inner loop will change based on the value of I. So right now the range is 1 comma 2 plus 1, which is 3. So now you can see this range operator will have 2 values in it, 1 and 2. So now you can understand the inner for loop will execute 2 times, right? So now first the value 1 will be loaded into j, and then so j will have value 1. Now it will print the character, so a will be printed here with a space. Now again the inner for loop has to execute because it has to take one more value from the range, right? So now 2 will be loaded into j. So j will have value 2, and then again the print will execute. So again one more a will be printed with a space, and now both values of the range operator is finished. Now inner for loop is done. I will come out of inner for loop. I will execute this print statement. So the cursor will go to the next line. Now the control will go back to 4, taking the third value. Okay, so now you can see the inner loop will execute 3 times, printing 3 A's with a space, right? And after that the final print statement will push it to the next line. Now the control will go back to 4 again, taking the last value from the range, that is 4. Now we can see the inner loop will execute 4 times, printing character A, and then your program will finish because the outer for loop has done taking all the values from the range, right? So that's how we get this pattern as the output. So now let us run the program. Now our program is ready. I'll just run it. Now it will ask for the character that it has to print the pattern for. So I will enter capital A. I'll press enter. Now you can see it is printing for 4 lines because my outer for loop runs 4 times. All right. Now you can run the program again. Now this time you can give another pattern, for example, @ right? And you can see @ according to this pattern. Now if you want to increase the pattern to print 10 lines, you just have to now if you want to increase the pattern to print 10 lines, you have to increase the range operator from 1 to 11. Right? So in effect you will be running this loop 10 times. Now we can save and execute the program again. This time I will give the pattern star. So here you can see it is printing for 10 lines the same pattern. So now let us continue with the next program. So now we are going to see our second program related to pattern printing. Alright, so our aim is to print a pattern as shown here. Now this program expects an odd number as its input. Okay, so then only we can print this pattern properly. So why we are entering an odd number? For example, if you enter 5, you can see the middle line, that is the most lengthiest line, it will have 5 stars. Line above that will have 3. And line below that will also have 3, and the first line and the last line will have only 1 each. So here you can see this is our high value, okay, which is equal to 5. So immediately before that I will be printing only high minus 2 elements. Immediately before that I will be printing only high minus 2, okay, from that. So now that you are clear that I have to enter a odd number, now the number that you enter will be stored into the variable high. Okay, so I have a variable called high and it has number 5, so that we will see in the output the same pattern that I have shown over here. When you print the first star in the first line, you should understand you cannot print it here, right? You have to give proper space, and after that only you can print the star. In the next line you can see I am reducing the amount of space. 2 spaces I will reduce. So from the left side I may have to leave only 2 spaces less than whatever I have left before, and then I can start printing my stars. Okay, and in between each of these stars I am printing 2 spaces, so that they are separated out and we can see them properly. And you see when you come to the third line, you don't have to print a space itself. You can start in the beginning itself, right? But in this line, you have to print stars equal to the input that you have given. Until here, you have to give more space to the first line, less space to the middle line, and no space in the beginning. But after that, you see the structure is getting reversed, right? So here you have to increase the space, and after that you have to increase it even more. Now here you can see there are 2 for loops which does this job. Okay, so this is the first for loop and this is the second for loop. Now the first for loop's job is to print the upper triangle, right? Until this line. Okay, so the largest line will be printed by the first for loop. The second for loop is used for printing the lower part of this pattern, that is the lower triangle, right, excluding the largest line. So that is the overall idea. Now inside this for loop you can see again there is one for loop, there is another for loop. So I call it as 1.1 and 1.2. Now inside the second for loop also we have 2 more for loops here, right? So I will call it as 2.1 and 2.2. Now this first for loop, that is for loop 1.1, the job of this for loop is to provide the spaces before we start to print the star. You can see it ranges to space and the job is just to print spaces. Once adequate spaces are given, next you have to print the stars in the line, and for that you have the second for loop. Now this for loop will actually print the stars after you have given the proper spaces. So once the for loop number 1 finishes, you can see up till here the output will be ready. Now after that, we will increase the space value by 2, because you see when you print this line, there is no space at all. Right? So when you start to print with the next value, you have to increase the space. That is why I'm just adding space value with 2. Okay. Now the second for loop, the job is to print the lower part of the triangle. I already told you. Now inside here, I have the first for loop, which will be creating the spaces before printing the star, and the second for loop will be actually printing the stars inside a line. So that is the basic idea behind this program. Now I'll just trace the program. Now first the program will ask for an input. You have to give an odd number. Assume that I give 5. 5 will be stored into this variable high. So I have a variable high which has value 5. Now 5 will also be copied into another variable space. So I will have my next variable space. Okay. Now inside here also I will have value 5. We will start with the first for loop. First of all, let us find the range value for this for loop. So here it says that 1, high plus 1 is 6 and the step value is 2. So what will be the values available in this range? So it will be 1, then 1 plus 2, 3, 3 plus 2, 5. So these are the 3 values that will be available inside the range operator. So first value 1 will be taken up by the control variable I, so 1 will be there. Now our first job is to print spaces for the first line. I will run this for loop space number of time. Okay, so right now the value of space is 5, so this for loop will execute 5 times. Right, and each time it executes, it will print 2 spaces. It will print a space over here and then it ends with another space, so 2 spaces will be printed 5 times. So in my output, initially it will print 10 spaces. Okay, and maybe the cursor is waiting over here. So once this for loop is finished, so I will just number the for loop. So this is 1.1, this is 1.2. Okay, so once 1.1 for loop is finished, we will go to 1.2. This is where we will print the stars. Now here you can see the range works with the value of I. Okay, so right now the value of I is 1. So now value of j is 1. So which means that this loop will work only one time. Because you see, we have to print only 1 star in the first line. So it will print a star, right? And then it will give a space. Now the second for loop also is over. We will come out, the value of space is reduced by 1. So now the space value available is 4. I have this print statement over here. Now this print statement will take the cursor to the next line. Okay, and now the control goes back to the for loop number 1. Now it will take the second value from the range and it will load it to I. So now I has value 3. Now you see why I am jumping from 1 to 3 is because in the next line I have to print 3 stars. Now how many times this loop 1.1 will work? You see we have reduced the space to 4. So now this will work only 4 times. Right? So it will print spaces and finally it will stop here. Okay, it will stop before the first star. Now the next for loop I have to print the number of stars. Now you see this loop works with the value of I. Right now you can see the value of I is 3. So now this loop will work 3 times. It will print star 3 times. So it will print star, star, star with a space. Now after that I'll reduce the space again. So now the value of space will become 3. Okay. Now the print statement will push the control to the next line. I will come back to 4. I will take the next range value 5 into I. So the value of I will become 5. And then you can see how many times now the space will be printed. It will be printed only 3 times. So it will print up till here and it will stop. How many times 1.2 for loop will work? Now you see the value of I is 5. So now this will work 5 times, printing the star. So now it will print 5 stars. The space will be reduced to 2, and then the print will push the value to the next line. And now you can see the for loop number 1 is finished because it has taken all the range values 1, 3 and 5. So now you see the first part of the pyramid is ready, including the largest line. So now we go to the next for loop. So here you can see you have space is equal to space plus 2. So the value of space will be increased to 4. Now what will be the range for this variable I? Okay, so I will name this for loop 2.1 and 2.2. Now what will be this range value? So you can see here high minus 2. So value of high is 5. So here it will be 3, 0 and minus 2. So the range will start with 3. And the next value will be 3 minus 2, which is 1. And the next value will be minus 1, but I have to stop at 0. So this will be the 2 values available inside this range. So now you can understand this for loop is going to work only 2 times because I have to print only 2 more lines. So first the value 3 will be loaded into I. Okay, so I'll just remove this. The value of space is 4. So value of I will be 3 now. Okay, so now here you see I have to print some spaces. So now the value of space is 4. So again it will print some spaces and it will wait here. This will work 4 times. So 4 spaces or 8 spaces will be printed. Now the second loop will be printing the star. Now here you see the J works with the value of I. So value of I is 3. So this loop will work 3 times printing star. So 3 stars will be printed. Control will wait in the same line. Now space is equal to space plus 1. So space will become 5 because next line I need more spaces. That is why now we are increasing the space. Now the last print statement will move the control to the next line. I will come back here. I will take the next value 1 to my I. Now after that it will print the number of spaces. Now you see the space is 5. So this will run 5 times. So space will push it even inside, and after that this will work only 1 time because you see the value of I right now is 1. So only 1 star will be printed. So this is how you will get the desired pattern. Okay, so now let us run the program. Alright, our program is ready. You can see here. So now I will just execute it. Now it is asking for an upper limit, so I can enter 5. So here you can see the pattern is printed out. We are providing enough space in the beginning so that even though the line grows, it will not touch on our left margin. So I can run the program again. This time I can give odd number 9, for example. So here you can see the middle line will have 9 stars, and following that it will taper to both ends. Okay. So now let us see the next program. Now let us see the last program for this video. Okay, now this program is also related to printing a pattern. You can see this the pattern that we are aiming for. Now the input is the number of lines. Okay, so if I input the number of line as 3, you can see in the first line only 1 will be printed, in the second line 2, 1, 2, and the third line will start and end with the number that you have entered. So if you enter 4, there will be one more line. It will be like 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now first let us understand how this program works logically. So I have to enter the number of lines that I have to print. Now in this case I will enter 3. Okay, so that will be stored into the variable high. Now the outer for loop, you can see this for loop number 1 will work on the value of high. So this will work 3 times. Right, the outer for loop will work 3 times according to your input, printing each line. Now inside the first for loop you have 3 loops. Okay, so the first one is a for loop itself, the second one is a while loop, and the third one is again a while loop. Now the job of this first for loop is to print spaces before each line. So here you can see in the first line you require more spaces, in the next line the number of space required is less, and in the third line it is minimal. Okay, so that's the job of the first for loop. the job of this while loop is to print numbers in the decreasing order. So it will print this much part. You can see 3, 2 up till 1. So when it reaches 1 in a particular line, this while loop will finish, and now the control will go to the last while loop. Now this while loop, the third while loop, will be printing numbers in the increasing order. So it will print, after 1 will not be printed, after that it will print 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is required. So that is a logical work that we have assigned to each of this loop. Okay, so now let us see how it works. So if I give the input as 3, you can see here the value of high, the variable high will be 3. I have another variable space. So this is the same concept that we have used in the previous program. That will also have the same value as high over here. And now the first for loop, it will work from 1 to high plus 1, that is 4. Now you can see the value available in this range is 1, 2 and 3. Right, so now you can understand this for loop will work 3 times. So first time 1 will be copied into I, so I have the value of I will be 1. Now the value of I will be stored into another variable digit. Okay, so digit is the variable that we use to print onto the lines. Okay, so initially it will have value 1, okay, the same value of I. After that I have to print the spaces. So here you can see the value of space is 3. So this loop will run 3 times because the range operator works with the value of space, and it will be printing 2 spaces at one time. So we will be printing many spaces in the first line. Okay, or maximum spaces in the first line. So once this loop is finished, I will come here. This while loop will work until the value of digit is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so right now the value of digit is 1. So 1 is greater than or equal to 1, that is true. I will print the digit. So in the output, now we have printed many spaces. After that, now I am printing digit, so 1 will be printed, and now the value of digit is decremented by 1, so the digit will become 0. Next time when I come here, I will check whether 0 is greater than 1, so this is false. So while loop is finished, I will make the value of digit equal to 2, and now I will not enter this while loop because 2 less than or equal to the value of I is 1, so this is also false. So this while loop will not execute in the first line, because in the first line we have to print only 1. Right, but this while loop will make sense when we try to print the next line. Now we will assume that the for loop has finished its operation for value 1 and value 2 for I. So now let us see how it prints the last line. So value 3 is loaded into I. So now in this case, I will copy value 3 into digit. Okay, so let us say in the output, now 2, 1, 2 is also printed. Now the cursor is waiting over here. Now you see the space will be reduced to 1 because each time I am reducing the space here. So 2 times when the for loop works, the space will reach to 1. So now this will work only 1 time. So now we will have only 1 space printed over here. And now we come to this while loop. Now there you say digit is greater than 1. It is true, because right now the value of digit is 3. Now it will print the digit. So 3 will be printed. Now digit value will be decremented by 1. So the value of digit will become 2. It will again come back here. It will check whether 2 is greater than or equal to 1. It is again true. It will print the value of digit, which is 2 with a space. It will decrement the value of digit again. So now the value of digit will become 1. It will go back to the beginning of the while loop again. It will check whether 1 is greater than or equal to 1. It is true. It will print the digit. So 1 will be printed with a space. Okay, and then the value of digit is decremented to 0. This time the while loop will evaluate to false. So here you see I have printed this much part of this line. So that is the job of my first while loop. Now I will push the value of digit to 2. Why? Because after this I have to start printing 2, because until 1 is already printed by the first while loop. So the second while loop has to start printing 2. So that is why we push the value of digit to 2. Now I will check whether 2 is less than or equal to value of I. Value of I right now is 3. Okay, so now this is true. So now I will print the digit. So 2 will be printed with a space, and then you see here we are incrementing the digit, because after 2 I have to print 3. So I will increment the digit. Now the digit will go to value 3, and now I will check whether 3 is less than or equal to 3. That is true. I will print the digit, so 3 will be printed with a space. After that the value of digit will become 4. Now I will check 4 is less than or equal to 3. You can see this will evaluate to false. Okay, because I have printed the 3, and now I can terminate the program. So now this will evaluate to false. I will come out of this while loop. I will go back to 4. 4 already finished. My program will terminate. Okay, so this is how it will print this pattern pyramid. Okay, so now let us run it. So now our program is ready. You can see here. All right, so now I will execute it. Now I'll enter the limit as 3. So here you can see our pattern is ready. So I run the program again. Now if you enter 6, you can see it prints 6 lines, right? And the last line starts at 6 and it ends at 6. Okay, that will be all for this video.